Please tell us more about yourself and your journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Ladies, leadership logistics is something I'm very passionate about. So I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'll tell you a bit about myself, my background, and how I got into logistics. Right? So interestingly, I'm a pharmacist by training. My first degree was in pharmacy, right? Before I went on to study, some other courses, and postgraduate diplomas in supply chain and logistics. So as a pharmacist, one of the reasons why I got into healthcare is because I wanted to help patients. I was passionate about healthcare. I wanted to make sure that healthcare was accessible and affordable to the average Nigerian. But when I got into it, I realized that the bigger problem was drug or medicines availability, medicines affordability, and more importantly, authenticity of medications in Nigeria. And if you put all of those three together, the summary of it all is in the supply chains, right? So I realized quickly that if I wanted to achieve what I was passionate about, it would be through supply chains, right? So to guarantee authenticity, to guarantee availability of medication, it had to do with fixing the broken supply chain system. So I quickly I quickly moved from just patient care to supply chain, to fixing the supply chain. So I soon, developed interest in working with drug importers, medicine distributors within Nigeria to make sure that medicines were planned. Remote areas within Nigeria were able to get medications, and all of those remote hospitals, in the far remote corners of Nigeria, were able to access medications that they need. Because in the hospital where I worked when I started my career, one big challenge was that every time a patient came, one in seven patients that came into the hospital was able to access the full prescription that was given to them. Most of the time, 60% of the patients that came in could not have their full prescriptions given to them because of availability. It's either the medicines had run out or the medicines were not available. And so that was what caught my eye. And so I started to think about how I could fix that for most of the patients in Nigeria. And so I started to do my research, started to understand that 70% of the medications that we use in Nigeria were imported. Right? We had only about 30% local manufacture. And so supply chain was a big factor to get these medicines available. And so that was what caught my interest. I didn't want to just stick with helping one patient within my hospital. I wanted to make sure that other patients, in the north southeast of Nigeria could access their medication. And so, it was a big brain that I had to change
Yeah.
from being just patient focused, to supply chain, fixing the broken supply chain system. And that's how I got into supply chain, cold chain, supplies was another issue, just distribution of this important medication throughout Nigeria. And that's just basically. So if I was to summarize, I would say, well, um, I stumbled into it, but it was love at first touch, right? Immediately I realized that this was what I wanted to do, and I focused on it ever since then.
Wow, that is so so beautiful, inspiring and awesome. Like having a purpose that to serving so many people and the medical needs. I have always found the combination of supply chain and pharmacy very, very fascinating. But at the same time, I feel it's very, very demanding also. It requires a lot of precision, a lot of perfection, being sure that there's speed and efficiency. Like it's if you work in this sector, I feel it gives you a lot of satisfaction, like the combination of these two. But at the same time, I feel it is very, very demanding. So, talking about that, how do you ensure that you don't feel burned out when you serve such a combination of sectors, which are so essential but draining at the same time?
Oh, you're so spot on. You're so spot on. I mean, it's very, very essential. It's very interesting. It's very challenging because, like you put it correctly, healthcare is very, very delicate. Healthcare requires a lot of precision, and supply chain is so very broad, so very vast, and there's a lot that could go wrong with supply chain. So putting those two together, I mean, the truth is that the lives of a lot of people, millions of people, you know, typically, I mean, to put it straight, just is in your hands, right? Because when people are not able to get the needed medication to save their lives just because it's not available or the shipment didn't arrive on time or it wasn't delivered on time. Their life is in your hands. Or if it is delivered and the integrity has been compromised along the supply chain, probably because it's supposed to be a cold chain medication, it's a vaccine, and needs to be at a certain temperature, and something went wrong along the supply chain, whether during the shipping, or while it was on the road, and then temperature is compromised, the integrity of that medication is compromised, and anybody who uses it is at risk. So you're put it very correctly that it's a very delicate, very demanding, very challenging. But I would say that first of all, because it's something that you're passionate about, it's something that you put, all of your attention to, you're able to make the right changes, the right steps, the right decisions at the right time. I think one of the things that drives me is the fact that somebody somewhere, one life somewhere is depending on this parcel, this package, this delivery, this shipment. And so that keeps you going, keeps you motivated. You go the extra mile to make sure that it is properly done, it is properly packed, it's properly shipped, and it's properly done. Another thing I would say is proper planning. Planning is very key. We plan, you make sure to plan from procurement, planning, forecasting the right quantities, forecasting the right shipments, the right parcels to use, planning onto the very detail, very important. You're planning the temperatures, you're planning the right containers, the right vessels, planning the right teams, planning the right people, planning the right third party, partners to use, all of that, very strict contracting, tight contracting with all of your vendors, your third party contractors, all of that is very important. Getting the right persons to do the right things, to handle, the right tools and all of that. Make sure that, you're able to sleep at night, because you know that you've planned properly. And, of course, things might still go wrong, but I would say also having like what we would call, maybe I would just call it like, an emergency plan, emergency plan B. That's what a lot
Yeah.
of people call it. Exactly, to make sure that, if something goes wrong, there's another way to get it done. All of that just makes sure that things keep going smoothly, and that you're able to sleep at night. Really.
That actually does sound like something an amazing leader would talk about, that you need to know how to fix even before the things get messed up. And a
Exactly.
sector, as you mentioned, where life is dependent on it, you need to have that surety that what next if this doesn't work out. And
Very
you
important.
know exactly. And like you have described yourself as having expertise in leadership, which I can see clearly, strategy and supply chain. So, how are these three intersections so essential for your career?
Oh, very essential, very essential. I think one of the things that I learned early is that you need to focus early, right? Determine what you want to do and focus on it. So if you focus early, you are able to go farther. When other people are still trying to figure out what they want to do, because like I said, I'm a pharmacist, a lot of people may not be very familiar with supply chain, right? But I knew that that was what I wanted to do, so I focused on it early. In terms of leadership, right, I also think that with leadership comes a lot of responsibility,
True.
right? And it's like pretty long. And I would say that um, leadership and being a lady, comes with extra responsibility because, um, apart from all that you have to take care of, as a lady, there's a lot more expectation of you. A lot of people already are not sure that you can do it. A lot of people already think that, the pressures are going to weigh you down. A lot of people think that logistics, is maybe a male-dominated area, and
Yeah.
so there's already an unseen pressure around you, right? So I think that it's important that you um, understand what the end goal is, and then you can work back from that. So what do you want to achieve? Right? What's the goal of this task, this project that you're managing? It's the goal, profitability. It's the goal, availability. It's the goal, the people. Just understand the goal. Once you understand the goal, then you can work back your strategy, right? The most important thing here is that we want this to be done. So how do we get it done? You work back on that and get your strategy in place. And then once you get your strategy in place, get the right team, right? Get the right people that are going to do it. No sentiments, no biases, just get the right people that can do it. Whether they be third party, whether they be your team members, whether they be male, whether they be female, just ensure that it's the right people who know the right things to do that are, and then get the right processes, right? Once you get the right people, the right processes in place, I think the rest it may,
Falls into place.
it may falter, but mostly it will fall in place. Most of the time it will fall in place.
Yeah,
So once you're able to put all of that together, it will mostly fall in place. Get your end goal, your goals, the vision, make it clear. Be sure what you want to achieve. Get your strategy in place, get the right people in place, and most of it will just fall in place.
definitely. And the beauty with which you explained it as to how a woman's life itself is tough, along with being in a sector like this, it can add to more and more stress, I feel. I have spoken to some amazing women out there who have mentioned about how they have balanced their motherhood or their marriage along with the whole sector. And whenever I hear the stories, I'm like, oh my God, how are they doing it? Because it is such a demanding job. Having people deal with their pregnancies along with COVID situation has been a very inspiring um I would say experience that I got to hear about. And I was like, that is so, so tough, and they always give credit to their team and people who make it possible. So I feel that is definitely a very, very important aspect that you just described. Having the right people can make a lot of difficult tasks also possible.
Exactly,
And
exactly,
you
exactly.
are
Having the right people, having the right processes,
here.
and having the right strategy. Yes.
Definitely. And you are one of those amazing women out there who is making such amazing impact into the sector. Talking about your early career, what is that one decision or risk you took that you believed changed the trajectory of your professional growth?
Hmm. That's a beautiful question. And I've given it thought now, and I'm thinking, what's one major step that I took? Um, I'd say it's just launching out into um, logistics and supply chain. I think that's one major risk I took I mean, if you've listened to my background, right, it has nothing to do with logistics. As a matter of
Yeah,
fact, they don't teach you that in medical school, right? They don't teach you that. So, but I saw the problem, I saw the gap, and I knew that I wanted to be part of fixing this. And it was a big risk. I remember talking to my colleagues then. I was fresh from school when I started, when I knew I wanted to do logistics, right?
true.
And I remember talking to some of my colleagues and saying, I want to pivot. I want to move from patient care to core logistics and supply chain. And they asked me, are you crazy? We don't have any background in that. I mean, what we know is the medicines. We know prescription. We know how to formulate drugs. We know how to formulate medicines, patient testing, patient care. That's what I know. So how is it that you want to go into logistics and supply
Supply chain
chain?
and logistics,
I
yeah.
mean, you don't have the training, you don't have the background. And then I started to research. I checked, what does it take to be a supply chain professional? What does it take to be a logistics professional? And, I started to do my research. I saw the courses I needed to take. It was like starting again for me. And it was a big risk. So a lot of my colleagues had gone ahead, they had advanced in being, superintendent pharmacist, consultant pharmacist, and all of that. While I was, taking courses, to go into logistics and supply chain, so
Mm,
it was a big risk and it was a gamble because again, the future of logistics and supply chain in Nigeria wasn't very clear, as at that time. We didn't have people who were like core professional um, supply chain experts or logistics experts as such, especially in the medical field. So it was a big gamble, it was a big risk. But I was just passionate about what I wanted to fix. I was sure that there was this big problem with medical supply chain, and I wanted to be part of fixing that. So it was a big gamble for me. But I'm glad I did. It's deeply
yeah.
rewarding now. It's deeply rewarding now when I see, some of the initiatives, the solutions, the ERPs that we've designed, and a lot of businesses are now using it. I'm proud of what we've come to achieve. When I see some of the cold chain processes that we've developed, that help a woman in northern Nigeria, not able to get her vaccines, able to get her vaccination, I'm proud of what we've done. When I see how the integrity of medication is maintained throughout the supply chain, whether it's going far east or west, I'm proud of what we've done. So I think really, I mean, that's a very interesting question I haven't really thought about. And looking back now, I think it was a big gamble. As a woman, as a lady
Definitely.
going into supply chain and medical supply chain for that matter, was a big gamble. And I'm glad I took the risk, and I'm proud of Alpha.
I'm so glad that you feel happy about that decision because that's all that matters at the end of the day. And I can't lie to you, I feel so, so inspired by you right now. I'm just in awe that, oh my gosh, she's so, so awesome. Like you, even when you talk, you have that clarity about what you're talking. You are like a teacher, you know how to explain what you're trying to tell me about. And I'm like, oh, that is such an important trait that helps you grow not only individually but even helps the people around you grow as a team. And I feel that making such decisions requires a lot of courage and strength because it's not easy, especially
That's true.
when like everyone around you is like doing great and like when the transition word comes into picture you yourself doubt a lot of things, I feel.
Yes. I mean, I
But I'm
doubted a
so
lot of things.
glad. I'm glad you made that because we wouldn't have had you in the supply chain sector had you not taken that leap of faith in yourself.
True. No, that's so true. That's so true. And a lot of my colleagues now look back and they're like, "Oh, wow, you were so sure of this, and this is good. This is paying off. This is brilliant." And I'm so proud. Definitely proud.
Me too. And I feel that strategy is something that's considered to be like subjected as the execution work. It's hidden under that word. How do you ensure that strategy remains visible and actionable in an operational environment?
Say that first thing, and I think that you touched on communication, right? I would say that communication is one very key part of making sure the strategy stays visible and executionable, right? So I would say first thing is once the strategy has been agreed upon, and decided, it's important that it is communicated and cascaded to every stakeholder, every team member, every person who has an impact, on that strategy as a whole, right? But more importantly, apart from even communicating, it's important that everyone who is going to be a part of either execution or even designing and developing the strategy is carried along and is part of designing and crafting or drafting the strategy. So I would say first thing is communicating where you want to be, right? In business, in the office, in the team. I mean, one of the things I do, for example, is I tell team members, "Hey, we've got this project. Okay, we want to create, let me use vaccines, for example. We've got
Okay.
vaccines that we want to, that has been created. We want to test it or we want to move it. And this is why we need to do it, right? So I'm explaining the why and communicating why we want to do what we want to do. So everybody buys into it because once people understand the why we're doing what we do, it's easy for them to see themselves in it, see the part that they need to play in it, and understand why they need to put in their best into it. So I'm explaining to you that there's a child in northern Nigeria, for example, that needs to be able to get this medication. But this medication is not in Nigeria. It's been created or it's been produced somewhere in the United States or in India or in China. But this child needs to get it. I said, this is why we want to do what we want to do. And then everybody understands our why. Once you understand our why, then we can create a strategy. How do we want to get it done? Oh, you'd be amazed at the kind of ideas that will come from the room. Everybody would come up with how we could get it done. Once we are able to then come together to formulate a strategy of how we want to get it done, right? Because everyone is a part of formulating the strategy, everybody sees their role in it. And then we communicate it. Now we make it very clear. We make a simple vision statement of what we're trying to do. We outline in maybe three simple lines, the strategy, very clear. And then we're communicating it to every team member aside from those of us in the room. So every other person that reports to someone in that room understands the why, understands the strategy, and then we break it down into process. That's the last step. We break it down into a process. So there's a process for everything. So we have
True.
our why, we have the strategy. We now break it down into the process where every person on the shop floor now understands his process and how what he's doing ties into that big strategy. Once we do that, um, it's easy to communicate it to even someone on the shop floor because we're putting it in the words that he understands. If it's a warehouse manager, if it's a logistics driver, is getting to understand the process, how that process ties into that strategy and how the strategy is going to help us get this medication to Northern Nigeria. Now, once that is clear, we set simple KPIs, right? We set those KPIs that help the driver, the warehouse officer, the customer service manager, everybody that then understands the numbers we're tracking. So we're tracking these numbers because we need to ensure that it's at certain targets. If not, we won't be able to achieve this goal. And that means that
Mhm.
child in northern Nigeria is not going to get that medication. So it's just clear. And so it's
Yeah.
actionable, it's executionable. Everybody just knows their part in it because you can see the process flow, you can see the strategy, and you can see the why, you can see the goal. So it's just making sure that it's clearly communicated, making sure that every stakeholder, no matter how little someone on the shop floor, every team member understands their role, understands the process, right? Because processes are very important. And then lastly, I would say data, right? We're tracking the data. So we have the KPIs, we have the numbers you're tracking, on time delivery, in full delivery, you're tracking, delivery timelines, customer satisfaction. We have all of that. And so you're constantly looking at the data, right? You gather the data every time. Because I always say data is life. You need data. Data helps you to make the best
Yeah.
decisions. So you can make all the plans, you can plan, you can design, you can, have a strategy. But if you don't keep an eye on your data to see how your performance is tied to, your targets, you won't be able to make quick decisions. You won't be able to make quick changes, right? So what you're constantly tracking the data, seeing your performance against your targets, so that you can quickly make changes. You can quickly pivot if you need to. You can quickly take quick decisions, and
Yeah.
things are likely to mostly fall in place. So I would say to make sure that your strategy is executionable, make sure that there's good stakeholder buy-in, make sure that there are good processes, make sure that the team is clear on the why they're doing it. So it's not just on paper, they understand why they're doing it, and then they can put in the best of effort into doing it. And make sure you're tracking your KPIs, make sure that you're looking at the data. The data tells a story all the time. It tells you where the bottleneck is. It tells you what you need to tweak. It tells you what you need to do. To keep an eye on the data. And with that, I mean, you should be able to execute effectively.
Wow. That is, again, I'm speechless. You are so awesome. Like the precision, the details, and the simplicity with which you explained each and every idea to me is really amazing. I love to point it out that, for when I say podcast, at least for my idea, it differs from the other ones because I like to be the student where I get to learn from the amazing women out there. It's not a one to one conversation where two extremely talented people like at the same level can have a conversation. It's a
Yeah.
student teacher thing where I get to learn. My idea is to learn from you guys. And when I come across amazing speakers, amazing teachers like you, it helps way more because it enhances my understanding power of the sector even more, and I'm able to make sense out of it. And I feel a little less scared to enter the sector.
I'm glad. I'm glad you feel that way. I'm glad you feel that way. I think it's important for a lot of women who have, a wealth of experience. And you'd be amazed how many women have a wealth of experience. I've come to realize that there are a lot of women doing amazing things, even in logistics, that you may not know about until you actually check. And there's a lot to learn from each other. I think a lot of women, and that's why I'm so excited about this ladies leadership and this. It just totally resonates with me because I think more women need to come together, compare notes, share ideas, because we have a lot to learn from each other, right? And
Definitely.
it's global because you'll be amazed what I can learn from someone who's in the US or in China and implement it here in Nigeria and get great results. We just need to collaborate, and I'm glad you feel the same way.
Thank you so much. That's very, very kind of you. And I hope that I'm able to make the kind of change that is expected of me, as well as something that I have myself dreamed of. That I feel that we are also calling it male dominated sector because we still don't know how many successful women are out there. Like, we just know the specific groups which are existing. We don't know that there are so many other parts of the world where the proportions are increasing every time, every year, by every percentage. And I feel that finding somewhere a spot where, okay, here we are seeing more and more new women who are making such amazing changes, it makes me so so happy when I reach out to the women. Because when I even came up with the idea, I thought there would be really less people. But the more I check my LinkedIn for these amazing women, the more women I come across, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is awesome. Yeah. And it
yeah,
really
yeah.
makes me happy and inspired. And I feel that whenever there are women out there making a change, one important question I love to ask is, have you ever been in that feeling, in that position where you have felt the male dominance in the sector? And how did you deal with it, of course?
Oh yes, I mean, it's true that it's male dominated, right? But it's also true that there's a lot of women in the sector. Like I said, we just need to find ourselves. We need to collaborate more, and then you'll be amazed what you will find. But I think that it's changing gradually, although very slowly. I think it's still largely male dominated. I think that for me, I mean, it was I knew about it, but it was still a shocking reality when I got into it. You know, I get into meetings and sometimes I'm the only female, sometimes we're just two or three. I get into to lead teams and the entire team is male, you know, and I'm leading a fully male team, right?
Yeah.
No single female, right? And sometimes it could be intimidating, sometimes it could be overwhelming, right? And sometimes, you know, you find out in some cases, especially when I just started my career, it could be very intimidating. It could be overwhelming too because you're trying to communicate with men,
Mm.
some of who have been in the business, some of you have been in the industry before you, some who may want to undermine you because they just do not think that you can do it, you know, because
Yeah.
they're just used to having male bosses, they're used to, and there's this narrative also that logistics has to do with physical exertion, you know, that has to do with um, physical work, you know, like it's not as mental. And I think that's not true. So a lot of people think because it's logistics, it has to be physically demanding and physically
Yeah.
exhausting. Yes, it is. It is, yes, but you know, there's also a lot of mental and strategic thinking that goes into it. So and I think women are super when it comes to mental and strategic thinking, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to deal with that, you know, I had to deal, especially when I first started, right? The first teams that I led were fully male, no single female in it. And it was, it was, I mean,
Crazy
I had to,
experience.
I, I mean, I had to find myself. And I think says first thing is you have to be true to yourself and authentic, right? Don't try to be a man because they say it's a male, it's a male role, it's a male state. Don't lose yourself because of that. I think that I discovered that a lot of women in logistics sometimes, you know, they're trying to behave like men, dress like men,
Yeah.
and you know, act like men. And I would say, don't lose yourself. One thing I did was I tried not to lose myself. I tried to be authentic and true to myself. Yes, I'm female. I'm leading a male team, but it doesn't change or impair my capabilities in any way. It doesn't undermine me in any way. I'm true to myself. I'm trying to connect with them, yes, you know, and in the process of trying to do that, you might want to lose yourself. You want to be
Yeah.
overly nice. You want to be, sometimes you want to act like a man. Sometimes you want to be overly firm, and you're just trying
Yeah.
to be what you're not. What you're not. So there's no point trying to be what you're not. Just
True.
be true to yourself, you know, because they will see also the transparency. They want to be able to trust you. They want to be able to connect with you. And you can only do that if you're yourself. Because if you're a different person in the office and they meet you in the mall and you're a different person at church or at mosque or, you know, at the shopping mall, then they start to distrust you because you're a different person in the office. So the best thing is to be true to yourself. be yourself. Don't try to be a man. Don't try to be overly nice. Don't try to be overly stern or
Yeah.
firm or harsh because you are a lady. No, just be true to yourself. That's one thing I would say. Be very true to yourself. Second thing I would say, because and I'm trying to be, as truthful with my experience as much as
Yeah.
possible. I stayed true to myself.
Yeah.
Second thing I did was to know my onions because a lot of people already doubt your capabilities, especially if you're to lead a team of men, like I said. And so you had to know your onions. I did a lot of reading. I took courses because my background wasn't in logistics. So I knew that I had to know it because I had a lot to prove. I had to show to them that I knew my onions. So you need to put in the effort, put in the work, connect with other women that have gone ahead of you, get tips, get ideas, know your onions, take courses, push yourself. Because if they find out that you don't know your onions too, it makes things even more difficult for you. So you must know your onions, right? Um,
Mm.
so I encourage anybody, just know your onions. Of course, you can't know everything, but at the same time, put in efforts to know as much. Just know your onions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another thing that was challenging there was I had to be emotionally intelligent, right? Men have, especially in this part of in this part of the world, men have ego. Um,
They do, yeah.
yes, men have ego in this part of the world. I don't know how much you know about Africa. Our men are very strong and dominating. So, um, having to lead a team of all men, I had to be self-aware and emotionally intelligent, right? Know what to say and how to say it, understand what would come off to them as being rude or embarrassing. I would correct in secret, but I would praise openly, right? I would say to you, oh, you're fantastic in the midst of everyone. But if I had to correct you because you're a man and, I would probably do that in secret, just when we're having our team meetings one-on-one, right? I would do that on our one-on-one. So you have to be self-aware, also understand yourself, manage your emotions, know what will tick you off, what will piss you off, and be able to manage your emotions,
Mm.
because people think that women can just be um, emotionally, they can have
Yeah.
an emotional outburst, right? Yeah. So you don't want to have an emotional outburst, right? So be
True.
self-aware, manage your emotions, but also be able to be emotionally intelligent when you're dealing, with male team members, right? So I'll say be self-aware and be emotionally intelligent. I also say organize, organize, organize. You have to organize yourself, right? So my plate was constantly full because, logistics is tedious, it's very detail oriented, a lot could go wrong. So one thing I always would do would be to organize, organize, organize. So I organize my private life. I plan,
Yeah.
you know, what my family meals will be like, what the family, the children will eat. I plan, plan, plan. I organize, organize, organize. So the same way I'm planning at work, I'm planning at home. I'm planning the children's outfits, I'm planning the meals, I'm planning, 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 organize, organize, organize. You have to do that for you to be on top because you drop the ball, right? If you're not well, super organized, you'll drop the balls. At some point, something is going to suffer, right? And you don't want anything to suffer. So you have to like organize, 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 plan, plan,
Organize.
plan. And lastly, I'll say
Definitely.
last thing I'll say is don't take anything too personal. One of the things I did was not to take anything too personal, right? So, like I said, when I first started, I was leading a team of all men. And sometimes, they make some comments or they say some things or you think it's personal, right? I try
Yeah.
not to take anything too personal, right? I just make sure that, I I focus on the job and not take anything too personal. So I would say that, yeah, so those are some of the challenges, that I had, in a male dominated industry, especially when I started. Now it's a lot better because I think I've gotten used to it. I think I've become even more senior. So I think now with a lot of, and I think over the years that's changed, there's a lot more women, a lot of men come to understand and
Yeah.
accept, that women are in this industry too. So I think it's a lot better, but, those are the things, that I think I did, and I would encourage anyone to take a cue from it and try it also.
Definitely. And thank you. I think you literally answered my next question, which was going to be
Really?
a piece of advice you would have for newbies like me who will be starting off soon. But I think it's going to be planning, organizing, not taking things personally. What was the last one?
I'll say be self-aware and emotionally
Self-aware.
intelligent.
That one.
Yes, yes.
Because I feel that one was the main most important one. And I feel like one of the important aspects that women add to the table is communication skills. We communicate much better than men do, in my opinion,
That's
of
true.
course.
That's true. No, that's very true. That's very true. I think that we communicate more because we I think we're naturally communicators, right?
Yeah.
We want to explain, we want to be understood, and so we communicate better. I think men a lot of times just summarize and they think you should get it, but you take time to communicate. So I think I agree with you on that point. That's one I will add to, yeah.
And my favorite one, empathy. We bring empathy way, way more than they
That's true.
do.
That's true. That's
We
true.
learn
That's
to
very true.
verbalize a lot of our emotions than they would ever agree they even feel in the first place.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true. I agree with you on that. I think women are a lot more empathetic. I mean, we can relate because we also have families. And so, yes, I think I agree with you on that point. So, women are a lot more. And I've
Perfect.
come to realize, a lot of people now tell me, oh, women bosses are actually the best now. Women leadership is actually the best. It's here to stay. And I'm happy when I hear that feedback. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. As you said, we women are subjected to a lot of responsibilities. And in spite of so many responsibilities, look at you. You are smiling. You're so energetic and full of life. That is something that I feel is not easy. Women, not
That's
just at home, we are subjected to so many responsibilities. And societal pressure also adds to it, I feel. Uh, Expectations that the society has from women are way more than what they have on men. They're like, oh, at least
yeah.
in India, it's more like, oh, they're just that way for men. Like the whole society talks like that. But for women, you're
Yeah.
expected to learn, to adjust, to adapt, and like balance everything.
Yes, yes, totally agree. Totally agree. There's a lot
And
more
I
expectations of women, a
Yeah,
lot
and
more.
I feel when we can balance so many amazing things so beautifully, we definitely have better planning skills, better organizing skills, better like making everything work and not blast at the end of the
Exactly.
day.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Definitely. And I am so, so glad that I got the opportunity today to talk to you, to learn so, so much from you. I am so happy that I just realized the importance of so many amazing aspects of the sector. And also, I have a lot of respect for people who study medicine. Firstly, the sector itself is very amazing, but it also comes with amount of effort you have to put in to like graduate beautifully with this from the sector. It is a lot of effort. So two
It is.
amazingly high demanding sectors and still that beautiful smile. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I mean, it's amazing. I love this. And I think we need more of this for a lot of young people who are getting into this space. And I mean, I was fascinated by this when I saw it, when you reached out. And definitely, you have one person cheering you on. And I'll be looking forward to all of the episodes. And definitely,
Definitely.
I'm so happy to
That is
connect.
so, so kind of you. Thank you so much. I hope I'm able to make you proud and I'm able to implement the amazing advices that you and amazing other women out there are providing me. And my life will be a little less stressful when I entered the sector.
Sure, you would. I can assure you. I can assure you.
Thank you. I